this is Peace of Mind. Today, we're going to be talking about weirdos and freaks. So, by definition, when we look at the word freak, it's like an abnormal behavior. It's where, you lose control to a certain extent. And then you take the word weird, where you're trying to describe something, you're like, oh, that's weird because of what the person is doing or the scenario that it's in. And the thing about weirdos and freaks as people, we tend to like to judge people that stand out. This can be in sports, it can be in arts, it could be in a lot of different things. It could be in schools and houses, in communal gatherings. But I think the problem is not that they stand out, but where people have this fear. They have this horrifying fear in them. They're afraid of this person, deep down. That's what it is.
Well, I think they're afraid I think it depends on what the person is doing, but I think a lot of the time the fear comes from that person reflecting, like, especially when we're talking about more creative ways of looking at the concept, the fear is more representative of like the person expressing a part of themselves that the person who is afraid of them is afraid to express.
Take like, you know what? Let's just give an example, right? Just for hypothetical reasons, we take 5 different types of people. We put them in a movie theater to watch 2001: Space Odyssey. Okay? We have 2 people there that are conservative. Okay? They're conservative-minded thinking individuals, completely on that side. We have 2 individuals that are left-wing, and they're completely on that side. And we have 1 person that's independent. So 1 person that's kind of on either side. And you take these 5 people and you have them watch this entire film. And you ask the liberal people their opinion. The left-wing and liberal opinion. You ask what's their thoughts on the movie. Then you take the conservatives or the right-wing and ask them their thoughts. And then you ask the person that's independent. What I'm trying to get at is the 3 groups are going to give you different answers based on what they've been taught and how they've been raised. That type of fear that I'm talking about, it's not a fear of you're terrified of the person because they're going to kill you. It's a fear of you weren't raised with that. You weren't raised to see a guy putting his dick into a woman's vagina and have a red light flashing down, and that's in a movie with like a 1920s song. It's just weird to somebody that never grew up with that. That's
Well, it's not even just not growing up with it, though. It's also
right.
being taught that is somehow wrong. Like when you're taught that something is wrong and then you see it being demonstrated very clearly and very casually, I think that's probably one of the biggest factors of people kind of seeing it as something that's frightening is if it's casual. Like when somebody is just casually, this is a little bit less common now, but it used to be a lot more so, where it's like somebody's just like casually being gay, casually being queer, casually in drag, casually, whatever, casually doing the thing. Like it's not a big deal. It's not for performance. Like when I was a teenager, I used to dress up all crazy. And I still dress pretty crazy, but like I know I used to dress like very, very like extreme kind of gothy, ribbed head. Like there's like lots of I made a lot of my own clothes and jewelry and stuff, and lots of spikes
with
and
the safety pins.
Oh no, I was like making leather harnesses and
Ooh,
or pleather because
nice.
I was vegetarian, but like pleather harnesses and like I would buy hardware from the hardware store and make these like really crazy, like extremely long spiked pieces of hardware jewelry, and people loved it, but people also didn't know what to do with it. But the thing was, here, like if I was going to play a show with my band, people were like, oh cool, you're performing. and there was like this like, oh, this is okay, this is a box that we understand, this person is a musician, this person is an artist, they're going to go play with their band, that's why they're dressed crazy, there's a reason. Like when there's a reason why the person is doing this crazy thing, it makes sense. You're in a
Right.
show, you're in a
Yes.
performance.
Yeah.
But when you're like, no, I'm just going to meet up with my friends, or no, this is just what I look like, that's when people get nervous, because it's the normalcy. It's making that kind of craziness normal. Like anything is okay if it's in a performative way, if you give it a box of understanding and put it into the confines of something that is digestible to like the mass population, then it's all good. But as soon as you take it outside of that box and it becomes something that is like day-to-day life, like you're just hanging out with your friends looking like a weirdo, or you're just hanging out with, you're just going to the coffee shop dressed with a 4-inch hardware screw spike collar, like
And the red
that's
kinky
when things get
boots.
Yeah, exactly. And the red, yeah, your
The
outfit's
red
great,
kinky
by the way.
boots.
Yeah. Like if you're dressed like that just casually, that's when people get uncomfortable.
It's
It's
funny. It's funny you mentioning bands because I had this weekend yesterday. I went to a record shop downtown Fort Lauderdale, and I went into the place, and they're actually like moving in a couple of weeks. Anyway, I walk in there and I asked the guy, I'm like, "Do you have any Ramones albums, for my vinyl record collection?" And he said, "No, we're completely sold out." Turns out I just bought out one record, and I walked up there and I said to him, I'm like, it's kind of strange, you know, um, the Ramones is a band that they were kind of like put under the rug. Like nobody bought Ramones albums, and like now they're just selling out like crazy. And he said to me, he said it's like when the water moves. He said that people are finally seeing the truth behind it. Why am I giving this as an example? You have a band of people, like you were in a band of people. They had a mission. Like the Ramones' mission was they wanted to do this. Like this was their job. It was part of their art. It was part of their creativity. They wanted to create a fast, bluesy, punk sound. And they kept to it for years. But what I think made the Ramones so popular is because of their weirdness. They were a
Yeah.
weird group of four people. Like, no offense to Joey Ramone. He sounds like a freaking monkey that had like a, like wind it up, in the back, and he has like a squeaker in there. Like, he just has a weird voice. But again, like you were saying, like the way that they look, the way that they sound, the way that they presented themselves, it's weird and sometimes freaky. But that's how they're expressing.
Well, but it's also like, I mean, okay, so like for Fuzzy Bunnies of Death, my band was called the Fuzzy Bunnies of Death. We're still on Spotify and we have a few videos on YouTube. But sadly, this band, our last show we played was in like 2014. And I think I was one of the only people to have a smartphone with a camera at the time. So unfortunately, a lot of our stuff was on mini DV and it's probably somewhere in a box somewhere in storage at the singer's house. I have no idea. We want to uncover it, but there's very little video reference of a band that started in 2003 and went until 2014. Um, Unfortunately, despite the fact that we played tons of shows, and if in a lot of parties in Chicago, you could be like Fuzzy Bunnies of Death, and people like, oh yeah, I remember seeing them when I was like 16. Like, but like, for us, it was like we were already weirdos. We all met, and the first night that we met, the singer was like, hey, like, like it was me and my partner at the time, who's still like a dear friend, and then like the singer and their partner at the time, and like the four of us met at Ozfest in 2003, and we all just got to talking, and we were just all these weirdos. I was 16 at the time, the rest of them were
You
18,
went
almost
to
19.
Ozfest?
Yeah, I was 16.
Damn.
And 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 like we all just kind of like we like joke, we call it like we just like stalked each other for like from afar, like two different couples, for like the whole afternoon, because we're like, oh, they're so cool looking, I bet they don't want to talk to us. And then they were like, oh, they're so cool looking, I bet they don't want to talk to us. We already had our flavor, our style and stuff, and then we met and converged, and we were like, wow, your stuff is so cool. And so each one of us loved what the other did already. And then Kanye was our singer was like, I really want to have a band called the Fuzzy Bunnies of Death. It's happy death metal. And we were like, huh, And it was like literally like 2 hours of meeting each other, and the band was formed. And so we started hanging out. And after a couple of months of hanging out, we just started practicing and playing music. And then later that year, we played our first show. And it went on and on for, we had breaks and stuff here and there. There were periods like, because we were all like, we were very young when we started. I was literally in sophomore. I was literally going into junior year of high school. And so like all of us have gone in and out of relationships, a couple of us in and out of marriages, a couple, most of us in and out of college in that time, or like traveling or whatever, like all
You
these
mean like a
different
vending
life
machine?
things.
It's like a vending machine. You just pick out which chip you want to be for the day, and you go on your merry way.
Well, I mean, not really. I mean, just like the Fuzzy Bunnies was like, it was like a spine through that entire 12 years. So like all these other things changed, and like, but we had that we always fell back on.
You know what I
But
mean by
like,
a vending? You know what I mean by a vending machine is where you try out one chip, you come back the next time, you try something else out. Sometimes, or sometimes you just want to be completely random. The vending machine is a representation of what you're going to choose to do, and then what comes
I'm
of it.
I mean, no, we were all very intentional with what we were trying to create. There wasn't really much randomness to it. We prepped for each show. We had our props. We had our fake blood balloons. We had our like live shows. We had our people that we interacted with in each
You mean to
show
tell me
that we
you
would
had an organized band? You had a
very
complete.
organized.
Oh my god, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
we had like we only have one album that actually made it to Spotify, but we had 3 albums. We had a graphic novel. Like we had a full-fledged band. We went on tour. Like we played shows. Like yeah, we were a fully organized band. It was not at all impromptu. I mean, like the performances themselves were pretty impromptu, but we had set lists. We had structure to it. We knew which parts I would put the guitar down and then start playing with all the crazy props and shit. I mean, you think Gore is random? We were a lot like Gore, but like cuter and queer.
It's kind of it's a different world. I mean, I feel like for people that are into kind of that genre also, I feel like if you're gonna delve into, I kind of love metal. I love alternative. I love punk rock and hardcore. Sometimes I like hardcore. It depends on my mood. Okay, but these genres were all created by freaks and weirdos. I mean, like, if you want like just a kind of vanilla take, take Johnny Waters from Pink Floyd. I mean, the man, he's a freak in a good way. I mean, Pink Floyd is an incredible band. They got a lot of really, really interesting. Okay, I'm just gonna throw this out. I forgot the name of the song. There's one that's like a money song. They the the instrument that's playing in the song is a cash register.
Yeah.
And
Well, a lot of bands in that period did stuff like that, like Velvet Underground did a lot of sort of
yeah,
like environmental sounds incorporated into the music that they were playing.
yeah, the viola. John Cale had this crazy thing where violas used to duplicate the sound. Kind of like echo it, where it would kind of make a shriek of a sound. You can find this in songs like Heroin, that's on the first Velvet Underground, which is Velvet Underground and Nico.
Yeah.
It's called Heroin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're a great band.
Yes, they
But my
are.
point in describing what Fuzzy Bunnies
Yes.
was that we just knew we had something inside of ourselves that we wanted to get out. And when we played on stage, it felt like other people recognized that too. And it was that weirdness. And it was like, several of us were like queer people, but we were all like, like what, like we had something that we just wanted to get out into the world, and we wanted to share with people who were at our shows. And I think that is and one can say that that is the thing that had other people call us freaks and weirdos, or that we embraced in being freaks and weirdos. Like, but we just knew that same attracts same. Like, we knew that we had to like get this craziness out of ourselves, and it made us all much happier and more stable human beings because we were able to express that crazy in a
Right.
healthy and constructive way. And I think that's the thing. That's where the safe container of, performing or performative experiences goes, is because you're able to create that kind of like, you're giving people, here's a place and a time to be a crazy person. here, come dressed in your best, come dressed as a wild thing, and you're going to get to hang out with all these other people that are dressed like wild things, who
Yeah.
are throwing cotton candy and fake blood around and rolling
And
around on the
unicorns.
floor.
And
We didn't have any
unicorns.
unicorns. We didn't have any unicorns. We were all,
Really?
but no, 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 no. None of us were into
I
unicorns.
used to. I'll tell you this. I went to a really
We were all
fun.
stuff. We had stuffed bunnies. Bunnies were our thing. Bunnies and skulls.
No, what I've been to shows like this where they used to throw stuffed animals into the crowd, and I remember this because I remember a friend of mine, he caught a unicorn,
Nice.
and I just like love that, like you're getting the audience involved, getting getting everybody like hyped up, and like that's the thing is that like sometimes the audience will sometimes make the band. You know what? Great example of this. We've talked about this before, like the Misfits. If you
Yeah.
ever like check out the Misfits, like when they're doing a concert, like the crowd goes crazy, and they like get up there. That's like you're saying, like like this is a place where
Well,
we can
that's
all be
yeah.
crazy.
That's what we did. I mean, I so like we didn't throw stuffed animals into the audience. We
That would have
literally
been so
had
much
stuffed
doper.
animals. We literally no, no. I mean, we did way more than that. We literally had giant rabbits that had the center stuffing of the heads pulled out, and we had bags with cotton candy sewn into the heads. So the singer would rip open the heads, and then we would force feed people cotton candy brains. And we had like an alien autopsy inside the alien. One time we got banned from a few different places for making them too messy because of the fake blood and sometimes the beet juice. So we had a song called Spicy Beet Mall, and in that song, we it's one. At first, I was like, at the time, I was like I had a farm, and I was like, I wanted it to be healthy, so we were gonna give. We actually made beet juice on stage, and I gave people cups of beet juice, and that was just ridiculous. And then we had little baby beets, tiny little beets, because we had a part where we had these words, different like different kinds of beats, and we would have the crowd chant like, like our singer Connie would like shout the like growl like the name of the beat, and then people would be like beats, 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 and we throw out these little baby beats into the audience and stuff, and people would like, and that got super messy, and we got banned from a bar because of that. But then we also had the alien autopsy. This is the best one, and we didn't think about the fact that Ziploc containers are very good unless they're getting jostled around. And so we had this whole alien autopsy plan and like an autopsy table and stuff and instruments, and inside of a UFO. So we pulled the thing out, and suddenly the brains just like they're made of like marshmallow mixed in with like like a strawberry syrup and stuff, and it's just mulchy and disgusting, and as soon as we open it up it just spills all over the floor, and then people are dancing in it. It just gets all into like it was so gross. It was this venue in Bridgeport called the Orphanage, and we got banned, and we stayed there for 3 hours, and we cleaned up afterwards, and we still got banned. But we got banned from a bunch of places because we made everything too sticky, basically. But our crowd participation wasn't just getting the crowd into it. We like literally got the crowd into it. We would, and so then eventually we graduated to like, I made this big beat prop that had like these, that like like it was like a three-dimensional paper mache beat, and inside it had like an area where we could put a bag of a space bag of wine, like box wine, and put it inside the beat, and the little nozzle came out. So then we just pour that in people's mouths, and people would just drink from the beat and suckle from the beat. And so there's lots of photos and stuff of like people just like, like it's like we're like baptizing them in beet juice, and they're just are like suckling on it like it's like a teat. It's great. It's so fun. And that was the kind of audience participation that we had. Or like, and then we had these rainbow worms, and people would like jump rope with these rainbow worms and stuff. But we had certain people in the audience that we would, they would know beforehand. They'd come to all of our shows, and they would be like our people from the audience who were, semi seemingly random, that would then be brought into the show to like interact with us. But they were like our homies. They were our friends that would help us move the gear and stuff too. And a couple of them went on tour with us. It was really fun, but it was all very
Yeah.
organized. It was like controlled chaos, like you thought that you would watch it, think this is insanity, and then you'd see, if you actually hung out with us, you'd see that like it was like a week of planning beforehand.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of like, we've spoken about this. I do play guitar. I have
Mhm.
been playing for about a year, and this is one of those things where you have to have experience playing an instrument to understand this. When you have an instrument, it kind of becomes like another part of you. It becomes this like this different, like, alien version of you expressing yourself. And sometimes we write our best shit when we're the deepest and our darkest shit. And,
Totally.
yeah, I mean,
Some of my best, I write books and stuff too, and some of my best writing from my books has been from when I've been in the worst situations or when the worst mental spaces.
yeah. But I did write a song.
Yes, you
And
did, and it sounds great, and you should play it.
should I play it? God. All right, hold on.
Be kind on the internet, but it's a beautiful song. I heard it earlier.
Well, I mean, I've been kind of trying to perfect this, because this is kind of like, I will say this, and like, I don't know who like wrote the songs in your band.
The singer
Songwriting.
wrote the music, or no, so the singer wrote the lyrics, and then we all just kind of jammed until we found something that worked around the rest of it. I played guitar and I made props, but guitar was what I did in the show, and or in the band, and then yeah. So our singer and the lyrics were not; they were all these crazy nonsensical things, and then like we also had a graphic novel that the singer and I illustrated that went kind of along with the story. It was really funny, but it was all this very fantastical, crazy bullshit, but also like cutesy, funny gore. It was great. But the singer would come up with the lyrics or a concept, and then we would all just and then usually the drummer would kind of start with a little bit of we had like 4 different drummers, 5, and like two different
most bands are
keyboardists.
like this.
I know, yeah. You always have somebody because drummers are such a hot commodity. It's hard to get good drummers. Like drummers are the hardest ones. Everybody else can kind of bullshit a little bit.
Look what happened to the Beatles. Like, they got stuck with Ringo. Okay,
yeah. I mean, if you don't have a good drummer, your band is really it's got a lot of difficulties. But so usually the drum, like it would be the drum or the bass. Yeah, it would be the drummer or the bass that would like kind of start with the singer first, and then me and the keyboardist would kind of join in, or the bass, or whoever was the third other one. But it was always a little bit of rhythm first, so you had like a little bit of like a crunchy spine to the song, and then we just kind of come at it from there. But we talked about things a lot more conceptually than like technically, because none of us, well, it's funny because our keyboardists and our drummers were more like technical musicians, but the 3 of us we're more visual artists. Like I'm, visual immersive artist and writer, like book writer, and then our bassist is like, now he's a wonderful art teacher and just amazing and an amazing oil painter. And then our singer was like a fashion designer and visual artist. So it's like all of us were like more of these art kid fashionista little fucking freaks. And then we had some people who had like some musical knowledge as well.
Believe it or not, sometimes the greatest songwriters usually are like artists. They're they do fashion, they do paper maches, they do all this shit. Anyway, this song is called Weirdos and Freaks, and it's probably gonna sound like shit, and I'm sorry I'm putting you through all of this, but
it's great. Ignore the quality of the recording, but it's great as a song.
Walking as far as I can see, no one wants me. We are weirdos and freaks. Finding junkies in dark street behind the alleyway. We are weirdos and free. you see is yourself bleeding in your own space. We are weirdos and freaks. One by one, the pills keep coming, drowning in a sea of thrills. We are weirdos and freaks, hookers and preachers, all gather, for the screamers are dead now. We are weirdos and free. That's it. That's the whole song.
Golf clap.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, if we're in the Poet Society, hold on. Yeah. If we're in the Poet Society, they do the thing with the snap from the fingers.
Oh yeah. Or if you're in an Occupy Wall Street meeting.
I think also like something we didn't touch on is the word queer. A lot of people like to use the word queer, and I think some people, not all people, but I think like a good thing to always remember is the word queer was actually a derogatory term. It was used to describe people that were off, or off-putting, strange. And we will sometimes take words that will have a negative context or create a better positive context, like the words gay is another example of this. Trans is another great example. Believe it or not, trans is one of those words. And I think weirdos and freaks is the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, totally. I mean, like I've always referred to myself as a self-proclaimed weirdo, but no, queerness, I mean, yeah, queer, calling somebody a queer used to be like a really, like it was in the 70s, it used to be like it used to be like worse than calling someone the gay F word. And like the gay F word was something that was more socially acceptable than the Q word. But then things have kind of changed over the years, and now nobody uses that term except for other gay dudes who think it's funny to call each other the gay F word. But like I shouldn't say it. Like
I can say
you can say it. You can say it.
I can definitely say it right now, but I'm definitely not going to say it.
Right, exactly. But like, but it's like it's sort of like the N word for people who are African American, and like where it's like you can say it if you want to say it to each other in a way where you're embracing it, but you're not allowed to say it if you're not directly part of that community, even if you are part of the queer community. Whereas queer is something that has become completely socially acceptable as a term to refer to the entire LGBTQ AI plus community, the entire thing. And so the queer community now is an umbrella. Queer is an umbrella for anybody who is just not heteronormative cisgendered. But then there's sort of like the subset of that, of like gender queer, which is like myself, which is more like gender fluid, like where you're non-binary, you do not, and those each have their own. I mean, there's like over 40 definitions of under the queer umbrella.
I think in a short way, and like I'm one of those people that I try to put it in a simpler context. Look at it like this: if you have a woman, a person that feels comfortable wearing a fleeced shirt, button down, a pair of jeans, and a pair of boots, and doesn't want to wear makeup. That's how she feels. And she walks around, and she may have sex with women, or she may have sex with men. It doesn't matter. The point is, that's what makes her feel comfortable. And because some people, I don't know, a very long time ago decided, well, this is for men, and this is for... You know what, you fuckers? You You wore heels. Men wore heels in the
Yeah.
1700s. I'm
And
like,
makeup. More makeup than women.
there's like, yes, there's certain garments that are maybe towards one gender more than the other, but all honesty, it's just clothes. It's
Well, but
just
it's not just
makeup.
about the clothes, though. It's about how you feel in your body and whether you feel like you actually
Correct.
identify with what you're born with.
Right.
But like, but and the thing is, like, and this is something that I always think it's like, yes, to people who it doesn't matter to, gender doesn't matter. But to people who gender does matter for, and there are many, especially if we talk about how the rise of it in like the Gen Z people, which is technically your generation, like the younger millennials, and like how much of that has been points of conversation and contention and power. Um, Gender is extremely important and pronouns are extremely important, and how a person is referred to is a sign of respect of that person as an individual. So it's like it's not about the eye of the beholder, it's purely about the person who's experiencing the thing, who desires that way of being referred to.
You see, like we've said that we've talked about this before. Referring to me by the generation that I was born in. The problem for me is that I was raised in a very close community. So my version of what is wrong and what is right is very sheltered.
Yeah.
It's very solidified. And I didn't start to be able to see the world for what it really was until about 6 years ago. But the thing that I've realized over the time is I have my beliefs and I have my philosophy. And I know what I see and I want an explanation. But at the same time, we also have to remember that we don't need people to self-define us. We need to be able to live our lives and say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I have to offer. I'm not changing myself for you because this is me. Take what you will, but that's all you're going to get. Because that's all that there is. By you shifting and molding and changing yourself constantly throughout your life to fit different boxes and different categories, all you're doing is limiting yourself to one
But that's not
reality.
what it is, I don't think. I think that I don't think it's shifting and molding yourself so you fit into boxes. I think it's finding, because when you find things that make sense to you and you find the terms or the ways of looking or the ways of expressing yourself, or if you rename yourself, like the euphoria that you feel, it's not about anybody but yourself. It's about you and your relationship with you. It's like, oh, I finally make sense in my own skin.
Yeah, but
It's not about
who's to say the euphoria is even real? Who's to say that the
you,
environment they're in
the individual. The individual says it's
yeah,
real.
but
It's nothing to do with the outside world.
yeah, but it could be a
Because
now
yeah,
moment. It could just be a now. Who's to say that it is any way positive in the future?
well, all we ever have is now. You can only live for now. There's no such thing. I mean, no, tomorrow. You have no idea if you're going to be here tomorrow. You have no idea if you're going to be here a year from now. So like that, you can only live for now. Ultimately, you can plan for the future and hope for the future, but there's no way that you can do anything other than now. So if that's how you feel in this moment, that is what you need to honor and appreciate, and that's what you need to live by. Like there's no such thing, like permanence doesn't exist. Everything, like life is a constant experiment from one moment to the next. You have no guarantees. We might get off the phone. I might go to the grocery store and get hit by a truck. I might be dead tomorrow. We don't know. Like so all I can do is make the best choices for now, for today, and move
I,
forward with that, with the hope that there is tomorrow.
yeah, I understand that. What I'm trying to say is in regards to where you have many people that will be too lazy to do anything about their situation and kind of shift and mold themselves into those boxes because that is the only way that they can survive, or they think is the only way that they can survive. But I don't necessarily. I don't believe in that philosophy. I believe that you're right. We do live in a temporary world. We can be dead in a minute. I could be dead on
Yeah.
this podcast right now. This would be pretty freaking weird, but it could happen.
It's true. There could be a hurricane, or
Yeah.
there could be an earthquake in LA.
Yeah.
Like there's a million things that could happen at any
Oh
given
yeah,
time.
100%.
So you can't say, oh, I might not feel this way in 10 years, so I'm not going to do it now. Like you doing it now might open the door to the rest of your life, in the life that you truly want to live. So the happiness that you're feeling now, is the feeling that you're feeling right now, is the only thing that can be true fundamentally, because everything could change tomorrow. You only have right now. And if you know, and so if you are feeling that, and you feel that you are, more akin to one form of expression or one term, whatever, like do that. And if you change your mind later, you're allowed to do that, because people are allowed to change their minds. Nobody has to commit to anything like about themselves forever. It's like we're constantly in transition and flux as beings.
I do have a problem though with limitations. When I say limitations, what I mean by we sometimes will have a limitation due to monetary reasons. We can have them due to personal, mental reasons. And the hardest part is until you're over the hump, you're over the hill and you can see the other side. It's very hard to stay positive with that mindset. And people have sometimes a very hard time understanding you, because when I say to somebody, and I'm saying from my own experience, I'm doing a podcast, I'm going to school to do nails. I generally would get a positive reaction, but I will get those times of people like, well, how are you supposed to survive? Like, how are you going to make money? Oh, don't you
Yes.
want to be successful? And to me, success is important. But it's the success of me being able to do it the way I want to do it.
Yes.
It's my
living by your
success.
living by your own rules, basically.
Yeah.
Well, of course, but that's kind of what I'm saying. It's like I think in people embracing all these different new concepts in terms of identity and stuff, that is living by your own rules. It's creating your own rules. It's not checking a box. It's saying that like I've created this new box, or other people that I feel that I resonate with have created this new box, and this is, it's not about the box though. It's about the freedom to choose whatever you want, and
Right.
and also I think more than that, it's being seen. Like, why I think that stuff is important it's for a lot of people, they haven't ever felt seen. They feel like they've always been, and it's not like there are people who are like, fuck yeah, I'm choosing to be an outlier, like it's a choice to be the freak and the weirdo, right? But there are people who have only ever really wanted to live a normal life, and they feel like the world is never going to give them that, because the world doesn't recognize them as human beings. And for that, the
Yeah.
identity is extremely important, and the
Yeah.
recognition is extremely important, because there are lots of us who are like, yeah, I'm a weirdo, it's great, freak flag high and all
Right.
that
But if
stuff.
you're a part of the middle class, you're kind of fucked.
But it's not even middle class. It's like sometimes, like, I've met a lot of people who are, kind of in queer community, who just want to have, they don't care about the pride parade. They don't care about the craziness or like any of the shit that's out there. They care about just being able to support their family and live a nice quiet little life without being considered a freak.
Yeah. And
And
I
that's just as valid.
yeah, I relate with those people very well. I do feel that way sometimes. And I do kind of abide to that in some ways, where I feel like I should have every right to exist and live. I don't give a fuck that I like penises and you find that to be kind of off putting. Sorry, that's what I'm into. I like dressing kind of kinky. That's off putting. Well, sorry, that's how I feel comfortable. I don't have to express or explain myself to anyone. I live
No,
by this rule, which is I will respect you. I still believe that what you're doing is fucking stupid. 100% I disagree with you. But I respect you as a person, as an acquaintance, a friend, or family member. That is
yeah,
how that is my dynamic.
yeah. I mean, that's like a whole other thing though too, because I feel like there are some people who are just sort of like, if you disagree with me, then I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I've always not
Sorry.
felt that way. I don't feel that way, because I feel like if you don't educate people about things, and if you write them off and you say like, well, this person is bad because they think this or they don't think that, then you're never giving them the opportunity to change their mind, and you're also never giving them or yourself the opportunity to grow into a common understanding of why the other person is the way they are. And I
Right.
think that, yes, there are certain things that are more extremely like, well, if like we talked about Nazis last week, like,
Yeah.
like that kind of a thing. There are certain things where literally just that belief system is believing that other people shouldn't exist, and that's kind of messed up. And I don't think there is much justification for that. But understanding why that mentality exists is extremely important for us to move forward and heal as a world, as a globe. And I think for that, it's like there was this Netflix documentary that came out. Well, it's like a series of them, but there was one that was about this woman who, she looked cool. Like she honestly, like, how she looks now is like, you see her on the street and you'd be like, oh, she's probably into some interesting things. She's like cute. She's like winged eyeliner, all black, and like, she turns out she used to be one of the like trad wife kind of neo-Nazi women of the Proud Boy movement back like several years ago. And like her whole story, and it's fucking wild because like you're like, obvious, I went into it being like, this is crazy. But like, knowing why this person was the way that they were and why they made these choices that ended up, dramatically hurting other people and oppressing other people, and largely being kind of like a part of a movement that killed people,
Right.
like understanding why somebody makes those choices is integral to not making those choices and to educating people around what those choices actually mean, and towards just growing and healing as a globe. Like,
Right.
if you don't know why the people that you disagree with do the things that you disagree with, then you have no way to talk to them. You just write them off, and in writing them off, that's otherizing them in the same way that they're otherizing you. I'm not defending these people, but I am saying, ask them why they think like that. What is
Right.
it about them? Like, find out what it is that makes somebody turn towards that. Why do they feel justified in thinking, white nationalism is a good idea, or like thinking, like anti-gay stuff is a good idea, or any of that kind of stuff? Like, what
It's
is it?
primarily, it again comes back to this, and eventually I think we're going to do an episode on this. I like to call it the fear paradox. It's this kind of like octagon, and on each corner you have different levels of fear. And imagine if you have a like kind of the hands of a clock, and you can move the hands and point it to the different walls of the octagon. And each level of fear is going to show you a different layer of the different fuckery that people have done over the years. You take, we're talking about this right now. Fascism. If you read about fascism, if you're one of those people that can handle Mein Kampf, be my guest. But in short, in theory, it sounds kind of off-putting. It's like, okay, the idea is like this: you have a supreme race, you have other races that work for the supreme race, and they're district and categorized into different departments throughout the government. And this way, everyone knows what they're doing, everyone has their job and their place, and they know what their goal is. But then you have people like the white nationalists that come years later, after segregation was abolished in this country, and after they unfortunately successfully slaughtered Dr. Martin Luther King, and they said, we deserve to have our pride in our community. These people, they're taking it away from them. They twisted the whole scenario. To be honest, you know what the black communities probably just wanted? Probably just wanted to come home to their wife and kids,
Yeah,
have fun on a
exactly.
Sunday, just like the white
They
people
just,
did.
well, they just want to exist without having a systemically racist country trying to tell them they shouldn't exist, and killing their young men for having a missing tail light. Like, that's what they want, in the same way that everybody else wants. And that's why, and that's kind of furthering like why recognition, representation, all that stuff is so important, is because mostly what people want is just to live a peaceful life. Like, some people want to be the movers and the shakers, and that's totally cool. But a lot of people just want to be able to exist comfortably and survive.
You forgot about the swingers and thrillers.
Oh yeah. But you know what I mean? But the thing is, understanding, like going into, this is why I think, for me, like, we talked about Jeffrey Dahmer a couple weeks ago, but like, why I think that like true crime is so interesting and stuff like that is so interesting is because you get into the minds of these people that do these bad things, and you're like, why do they do the bad thing when other people don't? Like, what is it? Because it's not like
Yeah, it's a great
nobody
question.
has, and that's why I think this stuff is so interesting, because it's like, it's not like, you know people have most people have intrusive thoughts to some degree.
Right.
Most people have negative thoughts to some degree. Most people
Right.
have bad opinions about X, Y, or Z. Like,
I mean,
whatever you're thinking.
I could say this. I've had thoughts about murdering the bullies in my past. Okay, just one great example. And I'm going to be graphic right now because I'm being true to myself. I had one kid that bullied me for 7 years. I swear to God, there were nights I had dreams of just dragging him and just breaking his fucking legs with a pipe.
Sure.
And then taking a clothing rack and fucking strangling him to death. And that sounds like really gruesome. I would never do that. But the reason why I felt that way is he pushed me to that limit. He made me so ashamed and embarrassed and inflicted of myself that I didn't even want to exist in itself. That is a form of what you're talking about, like the dark thoughts in our minds. But the layer with these people is, it's not even that. There's a layer above it that attracts them to physically and actually murdering people.
Yes. Yeah, right. But why?
Yeah,
why.
And
that's what I think is so interesting. It's like, but why? And because even more so, once you get into okay, like here, I'm gonna go completely left field for a second, but come back to it. Okay,
hitting the ball's going high. Whoa, there it goes.
Where's it going? It's going to Insane Clown Posse. That's where it's going. So I don't know how familiar you are with the culture of Insane Clown Posse and the whole scene of murder rap. I don't know how familiar you are with this. I was never a juggalo.
Okay, so I
knew a lot of them.
Okay, so let's just break this down. I am familiar with satanic rock and satanic punk.
Completely different. Technically, ICP is a Christian band. It has nothing to do with each other.
Okay, so you have to give me like something that I relate to.
It's not. Let me just explain
satanic.
it. It's complete not satanic. It's completely out of. It's a whole different thing. Whole different ballpark of the universe of music.
Okay.
It starts in Detroit. Also, they have like a lifelong feud with Eminem, which is hilarious. ICP, Insane Clown Posse, was two guys. It was Shaggy 2 Dope and Violent J, and they sing songs that are some of the sickest, most fucked up stuff. They started Psychopathic Records. Why do I know all about this? Because for some reason in my senior and junior year in high school at Lane Technical High School in Chicago, Illinois, in fucking a magnet college prep high school, for some reason, the largest subcultural demographic we had towards the last year or two of my school was juggalos. I don't understand. I have no idea why, but I ended up learning a lot about ICP just through osmosis of being a weirdo who smoked weed and stuff. And all of you all end up hanging out together, right? Basically, you have this entire subculture, and they still exist, and they have a gathering of juggalos, which is sort of like Burning Man for juggalos, where it's just they spray their audience with Faygo.
Wait, girl, back the fuck up. What did you just say they spray their people with?
Faygo. It's a really sugary, cheap drink. And it became, Faygo is like the official drink of the juggalos. It's a whole subculture. I highly recommend you look into it because it's interesting. I really don't. If you don't know if you don't know anything about it, what is so interesting to me is, okay, but there was a reason I'm bringing all of this up.
Yeah, because we went completely off the ballpark from Weirdos and Freaks. Yeah.
No, but we're not though. And here, I'm going to tie it back together in terms of talking about things that are violent. So ICP later, many years later, came out that they were actually like a Christian band, or they are Christian. Not the band isn't, but they themselves are Christian. They believe that they are trying to basically help steer the people who have these negative and violent thoughts and horribly abusive upbringings and things and tendencies towards violence into the right direction by creating community for them. And that was what they were doing the entire time. You would never know that. Honestly, I don't know if that's something they came up with much later and they just decided to throw that on when they're almost 50 years old or whatever. But that's basically what they were claiming many years later. But what did happen, I saw a lot of kids become juggalos, and they were generally kids who came from families where there was child abuse and some sex, SA abuse.
I'm just worried about this. I'm just worried about that. All right.
Yeah.
I'm just a little worried.
So you have these places where people can go to the concerts, and it's some of the most, I was never a fan again, but like I know a lot about it, and it's just some of the most twisted concepts of things that they would sing about, but that would give these people a sense of catharsis because they can't go out and kill their grandpa who's abusing them. They can't go out and do the things that are hurting them. They can't go out and affect the violence against people that are hurting them. So it gives them a safe container to express that in these fucking lunatic, crazy shows and music, and they're able to go that far and then feel like they can handle the rest of life because they can go that far in their mind without going that far in reality.
My input on this is this. I'm really, really kind of afraid of you put people that are to the level that they want to murder somebody, and they can actually do it if they wanted to. Like, they're at that point. And you put them in this room of this violent music. I mean, like, they could start a riot and then start murdering each other. I mean, there's so many.
But they don't want, because they don't want to, though. That's the thing. It's those juggalos. It's a kind of crazy subculture, but they're
how does it even
truly
work?
kind of loving people because they're able to go into the dark place together and find their way out. And it's like it truly is like of the people that are there. I mean, there's obviously, I'm not saying it's like it's 100% foolproof, but it's the same thing as Cradle of Filth or Demi Borgir, people who bond over black metal and death metal and like that whole subculture of things. People who goth music, really, like metal, like all that stuff where it goes into the darkest places, and you might be moshing and you might be like going into some crazy spaces, but then afterwards you don't feel violent, you don't feel like hurting people, it feels like catharsis. And that's what Fuzzy Bunnies would do. Like, you tap into the dark space and the space where you don't feel like you can get out, and then you're able to find other people in that space, and you don't feel like being violent. You feel like you were able to express this beauty creatively, or like this darkness creatively, and come out the other end of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very hard it's a very hard thing to kind of understand and be able to contemplate, because the way I've seen things for a very long time is the environments you choose yourself to be in, if they're toxic, they will take you down with you. And you're right, like, there isn't a foolproof plan for most things. I've had that question before it's been asked is, I'm into metal, and I had somebody that asked me, they're like, oh, so like you're into death metal. I didn't even say like what kind of genre. I'm into electronic, international, and grunge, and death. Sometimes. I'm not a very big fan of death metal, but it's one of kind of. And like, she didn't even like bother to ask me like which genre. Like, she just immediately jumped to that one. And that's not really what bothered me about the whole situation. What really kind of bothered me about the whole situation was the fact that I felt ignored. I mean, I kind of felt like I was being told who I am, what I like, right, and what I do. It's so stupid.
Because you're being categorized as something that you're not, and that's why those little delineations are so important, because you have to have those delineations that make the distinction of what you are versus what you're not. And like, I don't know, like I grew up, I knew a lot of metalheads growing up. I grew up with a lot of metalheads, I dated metalheads and stuff. And like, my band, we called ourselves happy death metal, but it was more like punk music, but it had death metal vocals and stuff. But like, it's like, metalheads are some of the happiest people you'll meet, because they get all that aggression out through performing or through being in the mosh pit, through listening to it. And that's kind of my point, is like, art is not meant to be easily digestible. It's not meant to be understood by everybody. It's meant to be understood by the people that it speaks to. And if you don't understand it, then that just means it's not meant for you. But that doesn't mean that it's not meant for somebody, and that doesn't save somebody's life. it will find the people that it is meant to speak to, and it will reach them, and it will touch them when it needs to. And that's why I think that, like, the reason I brought up the whole ICP thing was because I think that, like, the fact that that is an entire concept, that that genre exists of like murder rap, um, is wild to me. But at the same time, to the people who struggle with, and we're talking like a lot of the fan base for that stuff is people who deal with like real severe like abuse at home, and like not just like not like way worse than I think that like I've experienced. I can't speak for you, but like some demented shit, and that's
Yeah.
their outlet. And the reason that stuff speaks to them is because those people sing about that stuff. And more than that is because they're able to go to a show or like find a forum online or whatever, and it doesn't speak to me. I mean, that stuff doesn't speak to me. I never really enjoyed it, but like I did talk to a lot of people because we used to, in high school, you all make fun of each other, like you might all be part of the same general subculture, but you all poke fun at what the other one loves if it's not the same thing as you, right? So like, like I'd be like, okay, like why do you like it, why what is cool about it? I don't really get it. I talk to people and they'd be like, oh, it's like a family, but like it's because of all, like it's the you go through the same tough shit, and then you find your family, and they call each other family, like that they juggalos call each other family, which
I
is kind of cool.
I mean, I love
Again, I
like
don't like the music, but like it speaks to them, and it speaks to them because they have found other people to feel that pain with, I think.
I love how like you take a really like burly man, okay? You're probably about like 6'2". I've met people like this. They're kind of got muscles, they work out, they wear jeans, they wear a t-shirt. They're really masculine. And then all of a sudden you find out that like out of like that tough skin, and like they're into like the hard rock, like the hard music, and like playing fastball, and doing like all the man stuff. And their favorite song is Dancing Queen by ABBA.
Yeah, totally.
And I love that because it shows you their freak side. Like they have, first of all, they're a man, they're gay, and they're into ABBA. And it doesn't make any sense. To you, it doesn't make any sense. But to this guy, he wants to be masculine. He likes to work out in the gym. He also likes guys. And he happens to have a thing for ABBA.
Right, totally.
That's where weirdos and freaks kind of play in our everyday life. You'd be very surprised. Being gay, being heterosexual, being non-binary, all this doesn't need a fucking label. Like, somebody doesn't have to walk around wearing a black t-shirt and say, because I'm wearing a black t-shirt, that means that I'm non-binary. If I wear a purple shirt, that means... like, people don't have to explain to you their life that
But
way.
at some point, for some people, they do. And I think that you need to respect the people who want to do that as much as the people who don't want to do that.
No, of course.
It's not your
But you don't have to do it,
business.
though.
But
You're
I'm
required
saying,
to do it.
but no, but some people feel more comfortable doing it. Personally, I feel more comfortable doing it because I don't want to be misunderstood by people. Being misunderstood is a very big thing for me. Being misinterpreted, being seen as something other than what I am. I like to be seen for exactly what I am in every case that I can be in.
Yeah.
And so, like, for me,
100%.
talking about that stuff is very important. Granted, nobody should be required to talk about it. But if that's something that's important to you, you should absolutely have the space to be able to do that.
But you know what I mean, though? It's where this stigma of being this, you should be representing yourself like this and this and this. Meaning where if you have, I'll give you a great example of this, and I feel like in a way it has helped and has also hurt. A lot of television shows have kind of hurt the gay community a lot in the past 20 or 30 years because they create these characters of how we're supposed to be represented. And it's sometimes put into the media this way, especially now, where we're getting represented in this view of light. Well, what about the rest of us? I don't really 100% agree with that philosophy. I don't believe there's such a thing as a gay language. I don't fucking believe that we walk around going, la 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 la, hey girl. Like, we don't all do that shit. Some of us are more feminine. Some of us are more masculine. Some women are more butch. Some women are not. Some women are more feminine. That's just who they are as a person. And that's the thing. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. I think that's the thing where we take words like weirdos and freaks and we make them kind of like, it's fluff, like fucking, cotton candy. And we just make it bigger than it is. It's all we're saying is, this is who I am. This is how I like to represent myself. That's it. Just no explanation, no crazy reason, no insane story. This is who I am.
To some, but like I'm saying, to others, like myself, the story is as important as the thing itself.
Right.
The reason behind it is as important as the thing itself. And so I do want people to listen to what I'm saying about it and why, and ask why. Like that, it's not, some people don't want to have to talk about that, and other people volunteer to. And as somebody
talking about it.
Well, right. But I'm saying you don't have to. There are lots of people who do, including myself. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Right.
Like, it shouldn't be a requirement to explain yourself, but there are lots of people who want to explain themselves. And for that, there needs to be, methods of expressing that, or like there needs to be a respect in hearing that. Not everybody wants to talk about it, but some people can't wait to talk about it.
Right. And
both of those are just as valid.
They are. Damn. This has been one hell of an hour.
It's true. By the way, in terms of gay, like a gay couple that I thought was always kind of very sweetly represented in a way that wasn't like over the top and was like pretty subtle, did you ever watch that show 6 Feet Under? It was like around in the mid-90s, an HBO show. It's about this family that runs a funeral home. So one of the brothers, I think, is the actor who later went on to play Dexter, but this is like way before that show existed. I think this show came out in like 2000 or something. And like, there's one brother who is gay and his partner is African American. They had like a daughter who was African American, and the two of them were not like gay stereotypes. They were just two guys that were in a like loving relationship. And I always thought that was a really beautiful representation, because it wasn't like, that was like when a lot of like mainstream, I mean, this was like, think like around the turn of 2000. Yeah, like a lot of mainstream stuff like Will and Grace, or like what's the male version of the L Word? What's that show? It's Queer as Folk, like Queer as Folk, or like Queer Eye for a Straight Guy, and it was all this very over the top, like very kind of more flamboyant gay archetypes. And then you had this show where like they were kind of more like what you're talking about, where it's like you wouldn't necessarily know unless they were talking about it that these characters were gay. And I thought that was cool, because it was like still very respectful of them. It was respectful of these characters. Like, they were honestly some of the best characters in the show, but they were not over the top. They were not overly they were not flamboyant. They were just two men who are in a relationship. You should watch it. It's good. It's a good show.
And with that, I feel like we leave off with this, with Weirdos and Freaks, is you want to express yourself, go right ahead. If you don't, you don't have to. The thing is, we sometimes use these extreme words because they show a deeper message of us not being misunderstood and being seen for who we are as people. And this has been a weird week. I know it's been a weird week for you.
Totally.
This has been an interesting journey. We'll see you guys and girls sometime in the future.
And
on the
critters and days.
Yes, and all the above, etc., etc., etc. Anyway, we love you. We hope you go to sleep right.